All right, today we're going to dive into a really powerful story from the Maharatnakuta Sutra. Now, on the surface, it's this dramatic tale about a king, a queen, and a poisoned arrow. But if you look a little closer, it's really a lesson for all of us about anger, about blame, and about that really, really hard thing we all have to do sometimes, turn the mirror on ourselves. So let's set the stage. Our story kicks off with King Udayana. He's a powerful guy, but, he's still human. And like any of us, he's not immune to a bit of vicious gossip. Except in his case, it doesn't just lead to hurt feelings. It leads to this moment of absolute fury, which in turn is met by something you could only call a miracle. I mean, can you just picture this? The king is completely consumed by rage, all because of a lie he heard. He draws his bow to kill his own wife, who he believes has betrayed him. He lets the arrow fly, but it doesn't hit her. Instead, it just stops, hanging right there in the air above his head, blazing like a ball of fire. What a terrifying, world-stopping moment that must have been. And you can see here just how fast it all happened. It starts with one lie, one piece of slander. That sparks jealousy, which then explodes into rage, and then into attempted murder. But here's the incredible part. The queen doesn't react with terror or with hatred. She goes to this deep inner state of loving kindness, or maitra. And that powerful compassion literally manifests in the world, stopping his violence cold. Okay, so the king is, needless to say, completely shocked. He's scared, he's full of regret. That arrow hanging over him is a pretty clear sign he messed up big time. So he does the smart thing and goes to find the Buddha. But, and this is so important, he goes with the wrong question in his heart. He's not really looking for wisdom, he's looking for someone to agree with him. Just listen to what he asks. He's not asking, what in me caused this? He's saying, a woman made me crazy. He's basically looking for an excuse. He wants the Buddha to co-sign his blame game, to list all the faults of other people so that he can feel better. It's such a classic human move, isn't it? Looking for anyone to blame but ourselves for the arrow we shot from our own bow. And this, right here, is where the whole story turns. The Buddha, in his incredible wisdom, just doesn't take the bait. He completely sidesteps the king's request. Instead, he does something masterful. He flips the whole conversation around. He takes the mirror the king is pointing at his wife and turns it right back at the king. This really just sums it all up, doesn't it? The king asks, what's wrong with them? And the Buddha comes back with a stunning wake-up call. Let's talk about what's wrong with you. He completely shifts the focus away from the object of the king's anger and points directly to the source of that anger, the king's own out-of-control mind. So then the Buddha breaks it down for him. He explains these 4 fundamental faults, or maybe you could call them chains, that bind us when our desires run wild. And this isn't just some ancient lecture about men. This is about the universal patterns of the human mind that lead us straight into suffering and cause us to hurt ourselves and the people around us. You can see here how it's a kind of progression, like dominoes falling. It all starts with a simple craving, but it ends with a total loss of your own freedom. Each step is another link in the chain that led the king to that terrible moment, bow in hand, ready to kill someone he loved. Wow, okay, so the language here is deliberately harsh, right? It's meant to be a shock to the system. The first fault is about being completely consumed by craving. For the king, this was a fierce, possessive jealousy. The Buddha uses these really graphic images to show that when attachment goes unchecked, it's not some noble romance. It's more like a sickness, something that makes us keep going back to what's actually poisoning us. Now, this second fault is all about getting your priorities completely twisted. This isn't a knock on love, not at all. It's a huge warning about obsession. When the king got lost in his rage, he totally forgot his duty as a just ruler, as a husband. He was ready to throw away his most basic responsibilities because of this one flash of jealous anger. The third fault is self-deception. I mean, this is exactly what the king was doing. He had created this whole story in his head, this deluded view that his queen was the source of all his pain. He convinced himself he was the victim of her betrayal, and that story gave him permission to become a monster. It's the little lies we tell ourselves to avoid looking at the big truth of our own actions. And this is the final step, the complete loss of yourself. Now, this quote talks about becoming a servant to please someone else. But for the king, he became a servant to his own anger. His rage was his master. It owned him. It took away his reason, his dignity, his compassion. He wasn't a king anymore. He was a slave to his own mind. So after hearing all this, you can imagine that arrow hanging over the king's head suddenly makes a whole lot of sense. It wasn't some external curse, it was a perfect fiery reflection of his own inner turmoil. He finally sees the real cause of his suffering, and that realization leads to a true, genuine awakening. And this is so key. Real repentance isn't just about saying, oops, my bad. It's a total reorientation of your life. By taking refuge in the Buddha, his teachings, the Dharma, and the community, the Sangha, the king is fundamentally changing his internal GPS. He's deciding to navigate by a path of wisdom, not just by his own volatile emotions. So at the end of the day, this ancient story leaves us with a question that is incredibly modern and personal. In our own lives, when we feel that sting of anger or jealousy, when we want to blame someone, our first instinct is always to stare at the target, the person, the situation we think is causing our pain. But this story challenges us to do something way harder, way more courageous, to turn around and examine the one holding the bow.